All right. Well, I won't take up any more of your time here. I think we have a good number of people here joining, and more are joining as we speak. Right off the bat, we'll first go through a brief presentation about WaterTAP, and then we'll open it up to answer your questions. We're also recording this webinar if you aren't able to stick around for the whole thing, or you want to share it with anyone else who may have missed it. The recording will be posted on our webpage, which we'll talk about a little bit later in the presentation, so you can find it there. During the presentation, if you're having any technical difficulties, you can email our team there at the DDW Outreach email inbox, or you can use the Q&A button here in the Zoom meeting toolbar to bring up any questions or concerns about any technical issues you're having. We have staff monitoring those channels and we'll help you as best we can. Most of this webinar will be dedicated to answering your questions. So during the presentation portion, please feel free to add your questions to the Q&A using the button in the Zoom toolbar. If you see your question already in the Q&A from someone else, feel free to give that question a thumbs up so we know that more people are asking that same question. At the end of the presentation, we'll also allow folks to unmute and verbally ask their questions to the panelists. If you'd like to speak during that time, I'll prompt you to use the raise hand button, and then I'll unmute you in the order we receive those raise hands. Okay, let's get right into it. This is the WaterTAP, or Water Technical Assistance Portal webinar. This is the first webinar that we'll be hosting to share information and give updates about the WaterTAP system. My name is Matthew Zarzica Flores. I am a staff member of the Division of Drinking Water. In today's webinar, you'll hear from our three panelists of the water boards, Division of Drinking Water staff, including Darren Polhemus, the Deputy Director of the Division of Drinking Water, Karen Nishimoto, the WaterTAP Project Director, and Joe Emmond, the WaterTAP Product Owner. We also have Kieran Kasseteri ready joining us. She's the WaterTAP DIT Project Director. Let's take a look at today's agenda. So we've already done introductions. Next, Darren will share his opening remarks. Karen will then share some history of the WaterTAP project and challenges we have faced, as well as solution planning. Joe will give us an overview of WaterTAP features, the project timeline, and ways that you can all participate in the process going forward. We will then do a brief poll, and then we'll jump into the Q&A portion where our panelists will answer your questions. All right, Darren, I'll hand it over to you for opening remarks.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. I'm just super excited to be able to kick this off and announce what we've already begun, but our first public discussion of a new data system that we're endeavoring to bring forward to you all. It is a first major refresh of kind of a data system approach for the drinking water program since the drinking water arrived at the State Water Board in 2014. So sometime in coming, and we're all super excited about how to bring that to you. Many of you have seen us add pieces and parts of new data reporting systems, but those have all been separate adjunct or attaching systems to our main database, CIDWIS, and that CIDWIS has been pretty much, well, it's evolved a little bit, but it's basically the same underlying technology and US EPA provided database that unfortunately for us has outgrown its useful life. It is really designed to report data to EPA and nationally and combined states, but doesn't really service California's needs very well, as you'll see as we continue to develop WaterTAP. And WaterTAP, hopefully, is designed to try to bring together all of those other pieces you've seen us add over the years to address water conservation and drought reporting and the ear and all that stuff. So the vision is to try to recombine everything and make it much more interactive and hopefully with an eye towards making sure there's public reporting available. We also want WaterTAP internally to be useful for managing the drinking water regulatory program. CIDWIS has always come up short on that remark or part because of It's just really a reporting database. It doesn't track a lot of things California does, like issue permits, and we know there's lots of desire on the outside to be able to see where things are at in our process and know what's going on. So we're very excited that WaterTap will work to address those. Of course, we have to put in that it will come out in phases. First, it's targeted at lead and copper, which is where we're deriving much of our initial funding for it from the federal lead and copper bill funding. But we definitely know that we are designing it with the intent to grow into all facets of what drinking water does. And with that, I will turn it back to you, Matt, and off we go.
Thank you, Darren. Next, we will turn it over to Karen to share some history and challenges of WaterTAP.
Great. Thanks, Matt. Um, Thank you all for taking time, especially early in your day, to come talk with us a little bit about what we're planning to do to overhaul DDW's data systems. And, can't really do that without pausing to take a break and look about how we got to where we are, the history and where we are now. So if you could go to the next slide. I think we all know Safe Drinking Water Act started in 1974, and it's been a long road. There's been a lot of different regulations that have come out in the intervening years, but you can also see they are fairly spaced out. It wasn't a whole bunch of stuff all at once. There's been changes over time. Um, surface water treatment rule, disinfection byproducts, revised total coliform rule, all of these rules that we're very familiar with and deal with every day. And then recently, there has just been a huge spat of new regulations. If you look towards the end of this timeline, we've got PFAS, we've got the Consumer Confidence Report revisions, we've got the Hex Chrome standard that just came out in California, the federal lead and copper rule revisions, the federal lead and copper rule improvements. It's a whole lot of stuff, and it's a whole lot of regulatory requirements that have all come out around the same time. There's a lot going on. And I think, it's not to say that this isn't important, but definitely want to step back and acknowledge this is a lot to comply with. It's a lot to do both for the state to regulate, but also so much more for water systems to manage all of these new requirements that are asking you all to do new things, to do more things. And you really need a good framework to help you do that. So part of our planning effort for this data modernization is to really help make better sense of this complicated regulatory framework so that we can help everybody be in compliance. I think we all recognize folks want to do the right thing, but you can see just from this brief history, not all inclusive, it's a lot. And it's very complicated, and definitely just want to acknowledge that as we dive further in. So on the next slide, we can see some of the existing challenges. We were just talking about a lot of the challenging data needs, right? There's a lot of new rules, complicated rules, and I think we can all expect the regulatory requirements to continue to change. There are continuing new developments, new things that are found, and necessarily new regulations to comply with those. But we need to be prepared for them. So as we're thinking about modernizing our data, we also need to think about how we can make sure that we are positioned not only to meet the needs of today, but also for the needs of tomorrow and in the future. And that's difficult, right? We have a very dispersed statewide regulatory implementation right now. We've got 30 different state districts and almost as many local primacy agencies regulating water systems in California. That's a lot. So not only do we have super complicated regulations, we also have a dispersed regulatory staff implementing those regulations. And they're all using really inadequate existing tools. We've got very siloed reporting for water systems, whether you're reporting through the electronic annual report, or you're reporting through the Safer Clearinghouse, or other things that go directly to the district or office or local primacy agency via email or hard copy. You see monitoring schedules on Drinking Water Watch. There's just so many different things that are really not integrated and not conducive to having a a coherent single location to really have water system data accessible, which really prevents, good data publishing, good data reporting, and really a lack of transparency about really what's going on. As Darren had mentioned earlier, even our federal tools that we're using are pretty inadequate for what we need. We're talking about CIDWIS and how we manage water system inventories in there, but it can't do a lot of things that we need. It doesn't have permits, it's very clunky, it's outdated, it lacks the transparency that so many of us want, and it's fairly difficult to use. So we're kind of starting from a point of recognizing there are a lot of problems, there's a lot of challenges. And as we are planning for our new data solutions, we need to acknowledge them so that we can make sure that we are addressing them so we don't keep repeating the same mistakes. So on the next slide is we're moving in to our solution planning. That's really what brings us all here today, to talk more about what we can do and what we are going to do to both modernize our data and better support our water systems and our regulatory staff, taking into account, all of the challenges, and the complicated regulatory framework facing us. On the next slide, we've got our California State Water Resources Control Board strategic plan. And I just want to highlight this. All of our missions is to protect public health by ensuring reliable access to safe, affordable drinking water, increase statewide water resiliency in the face of climate change and other threats, and strengthen relationships, systems, and internal capacity to accomplish the State Water Board's mission strategically, transparently, equitably, and efficiently. That's a lot, right? But what we need to do is really think about how we can get there. We've got a lot of challenges, but we need to modernize our drinking water data management in order to accomplish this strategic goal. I think we all recognize things are super complicated, and we need to have a system that can help us, help you. And so if you go to the next slide, we want to highlight kind of what we're planning to do with our data modernization. We recognize our data management is far behind. It's way more difficult to report than it should be. Everybody wants to report, they want to do the right thing, but it's hard because our systems are outdated and clunky. And so we need to develop a modern integrated data system that is really a one-stop shop. You go one place, you get everything. So we want this system to have guidance and support for water systems and reporting, it to be a consolidated location. So you just go here. You don't have to go to the electronic annual report or the Safer Clearinghouse or Drinking Water Watch or wherever for your reporting. It's just this one spot for everything. So in the future, it'll become a single point of access for really all drinking water data reporting. No more logging into multiple systems all over the place. Now, this will take time. We won't be able to do that overnight. It'll definitely have to roll as a slow kind of phase integration to make that happen. But that's really our overall goal, is to make this a single point for everybody. And for everybody, meaning, the water systems reporting, the staff reviewing, for transparency of things that need to be published, it really needs to be a single point of access for all drinking water stakeholders. And, having good electronic content management so that when a water system comes in and submits a document, it's filed and routed appropriately. It shows a review status so the water system knows what's going on with their document. Has it been received? Is it under review? Has it been approved? We really want that all to be very transparent. I think that's one of the things that we've heard loud and clear is that people want to know what's going on with their submissions, and that's fair. So we want to make sure that we have that transparency of where something is in the review process, but also pair that with milestone and action item tracking so that with all of those complicated regulations that we just saw, right, that we have kind of a clear expectation of what needs to be done by who and when. We want to make sure that we are being transparent of expectations so that water systems can comply with those expectations. So all of this grand dream is a little something that we like to call the Water Technical Access Portal. It's something that we have been hoping to do and build for quite some time, and we've been lucky enough to have the funding to make it possible now. Um, and so this is really a great opportunity to get us all in a better situation and have more streamlined data management, but also more streamlined reporting, so you're not having to go all over the place for reporting requirements. So if you go to the next slide, I just want to highlight just what our overall WaterTAP vision is. The goal is an enterprise level data system, thinking not just about now, but also our future needs, that connects to existing foundational data systems and integrates new data systems, because we don't know what we're going to need in the future. This will have to be flexible so that we can continue to change as there's new requirements and new needs, but ultimately result in a single cohesive system to streamline information access, both for internal staff, water systems, and other external stakeholders. And so now I want to turn it over to Joe, who's going to talk more about the plans for WaterTAP and how you all can be involved. Joe?
Thank you, Karen. So, WaterTAP overview, simply put. So I won't get into all the details, but a high-level overview. So basically, we're designing a system to streamline and improve data processes throughout not only the division of drinking water, but public water systems and, state and county and local LPAs. What we'll have is a very robust contact management and credentialing, whereas WaterTap is going to be a single sign-on system, so all applications that you would currently interface with for the state would eventually be within WaterTap, feeling as it's all one application. So the contact management is crucial because that's your point of access going forward, and the robustness allows for the water system users to maintain their inventory for their contacts so it's up to date, no annual reporting and updates. You can real-time update it as your staff changes, or as an operator might be certified, or you have new operators come on, you can add that credentialing. Data and document submission and management is also going to be very robust, as essentially WaterTap is a reporting platform for water systems for regulatory purposes. So the data is going to be very important that we maintain it in an appropriate and robust and safe environment. And the document submission is going to be as little hands-on as we can possibly make it, making forms that are created in WaterTap that are also machine readable, so operators and water system staff and state staff can upload documents to WaterTap instead of manually entering the data. Workflow routing is going to be important because after you get the data in, WaterTap should be able to automate many tasks that are manual now, as reducing number of clicks. So instead of submitting it to multiple places or needing to upload documents and then, piecemealing parts of information in different aspects of the application, WaterTap should be able to take the information that you upload and then place it where it needs to be. Also, with customized dashboards per user, you can adjust your workflow to meet your needs. So if there are certain aspects that you need on your dashboard, like alerts of, reporting timelines or regulations, you can place those on there with reminders. Water system record management is also going to be revamped so that way water systems can now go into WaterTap and make changes to their water system records instead of reporting through the EAR annually. So if you add a well, or there's maintenance, or you're having a new CP system put in, you can go in and you can make those updates in WaterTap when they happen, instead of trying to remember, oh, I did something in January, now it's October, I don't remember the details. You can go in whenever you want and make those updates. Milestone tracking and management is also going to be new, whereas WaterTAP is going to include milestone tracking and reminders to ensure that tasks are not forgotten and to maintain the work as you go so you can save and come back later instead of having to fill it all out once or try to record keep it on the side and then come back later. You should be able to save, come back, pick up exactly where you left off, and have collaborative work sessions with other members, similar to how Office 365 works in Word and Excel. With reporting and transparency, we're trying to make it much easier to submit reports and then understand who it came from, where it's going, make sure it's Chrome Air compliant. So that way the chain of custody from submission from the water system to the EPA is very transparent and it's auditable to allow, less or no manipulation of the data. So that way the water systems, when they testify that this result is what it is, we don't have to worry about rounding errors or detection level because CIDWIS can't, understand that number. So we're going to make reporting much easier for the water systems, and not only on just reporting, monthly, constituents, but any reports. Reporting is going to be something that you can generate in WaterTAP, similar to the machine readable data and document management, where you can generate the reports and submit the reports all electronically to mitigate typos or manual data entry. We're trying to really use what the computer applications are good at with automation to really reduce the manual workload for the users. And customer relationship management is basically kind of what the system's designed to do. It's allowing us to build a system for you. It's not for DDW up at the high levels to make sure everybody's getting their reports in on time. This is a tool to allow water systems in the field and field staff to work with an application that works with them, not fighting them or having to do everything on paper, then going back and spending hours on the computer. We're trying to make it so it works with you. And a benefit of that is this application is going to be able to function on mobile devices, not with an application, but just like a web app, a web page. However, it's also going to have offline mode. So if you're out in a water system that doesn't have reception, you can download some information via WaterTAP before you leave, and then you can upload it when you are back in cell reception. Similar to like off-road mapping device applications where you have offline mode. So that is a new feature that we want to allow the ease of use and the automation to follow you into the field, not just be tethered to the internet. Slide, please. So the results of these improvements is better data by more consistent data, less errors. And I say that because if you don't have to manually enter it, there's less typos, there's less forgetting about it. I'll get around to it because data entry is hard and no one wants to do it. We also have better decisions as the system with its business rules should help you make decisions, not deciding for you, but with the rule-based applications that WaterTAP will be based on, you will be able to have suggestions or look at regulation based on rules, and it'll help you decide, okay, well, this is what happened, here's your options, and this is, the recommendation based on regulation history. Improved planning and management tools. So the reporting, the transparency, the data management, all these tools are going to be much more dynamic to allow you to customize your dashboard or, design your workflow and work with you, not against you. It's not you have to adjust your workflow to it. It should be flexible to help you work at your pace and the way you work. And same thing with the access, as I mentioned with offline mode. It's going to be accessible to everyone all the time. It's not a VPN only. You have to be behind the paywall, so to speak. It's going to be a web-based application similar to like Office 365, where you log in, you authenticate, and you have access. And it's going to be, ADA compliant as well. So people that need it to be larger text should be able to make it work with them. Like I said about increased transparency and accountability, this is an application that is going to help the water system ensure that the data is accurate and that they can be accountable for it, not submitting it through the AAR and then assuming that the staff member that is inputting it into the system is 100% accurate. We're all human, errors happen. This way, the author of the information can put it into the system and then they can testify that, yes, I'm accountable for it and I can testify that it's accurate. Slide, please. So when are we going to have this happen? So right now we are soliciting for system integrators or developers to build it. And we will have one executed and ready to start building the system mid next year, where we will be implementing a phased approach in late 2027. And a phased approach is as soon as we have functional portions of WaterTAP, we will roll it out for testing and adoption. It's going to be an agile method. So as soon as we have applications or functions of the application available, we're not going to sit on them until the whole thing's done. We're going to roll out features as they come. So at the beginning, it might be, a bit of a fill in your information, populating your water system, but then as development rolls out, you're going to start seeing many new features and functionalities start becoming available. And that will start in late 2027. Slide, please. And here are ways to participate. So we have an advisory group that will be forming sometime early next year, where we will provide details on how to participate and the reasons and everything related to that in the following weeks and months. We also have a website. We have an email for outreach, and we also have a subscription for updates. So I will now turn it over to Matthew. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. I think we threw that the website URL in the Q&A for folks to grab that more easily if you want to find that from Brian in there. Thank you, Brian. We're going to jump into the Q&A here just in a moment. Thank you to all the presenters. I'm going to do a poll real briefly just to get an idea of who's all in attendance and how you'd like to receive communication in the future. So please feel free to answer the 2-question poll here that I'm launching right now. I'll give that just a minute or two to let people respond, and I'll close that here briefly so we can jump into Q&A. If you're done with a poll, you can close it on your own. If you have questions, feel free to continue to add those to the Q&A button in the Zoom toolbar. All right, we got about Greater than 80% participation for the first question and the second question as well. I'll close it here in the next couple seconds if anyone else would like to participate. All right, thank you. I'll go ahead and close the poll here. That's a good percentage of participants here, so that gives us a great idea of that information. So thank you for that. And next, we will jump into the Q&A portion. Again, we've already received some questions in the Q&A button in your Zoom toolbar. We'll go through those questions with the panelists now, but if you have any new questions, please feel free to add them to that Q&A button in Zoom toolbar. If you'd like to speak directly to the panelists, please feel free to use the raised hand button in the Zoom toolbar. I will then grant you the ability to unmute yourself, and we'll take your comment or question at that time. I'll answer raised hands in the order I receive them when we have a moment for those questions to come in. I do believe there are some phone callers listening in here. If you're listening to this webinar via your phone, you can raise and lower your hand by pressing the *9 button sequence on your dial pad. You can also lower your hand that way. It's *9. So let's take a look at this Q&A, these Q&A questions. I'll just go top down. So whichever panelist wants to answer, we'll do that. Actually, sorry for those folks who need that. First question from Melissa: is the one location for the water supplier that is reporting, or is this just for water board's staff? I think this refers to WaterTAP being sort of a one location for a lot of these things.
That is a great question. Thank you, Melissa. So WaterTAP, the Water Technical Access Portal, is envisioned to be a one-stop shop for both the water supplier and for SWRCP staff, so that everybody goes to the same place with the appropriate role-based user controls, so they can see what's appropriate for their role, but that everybody goes to the same place to log in and access this reporting. Thank you for that question.
And next from Fred: single point reporting for water systems. Any thought about integrating also private non-water system data, for example, homes, institutions, to map that data against information such as the water distribution grid?
That is a really great question. Our primary focus is on public water systems, but that's definitely something that we can consider. And we are including a reporting module in the design, so that might be something that could pair well with our future plans. Thank you for bringing that up.
Question from Amy: any needs for water system beta testers or any work groups? Oh, I scrolled. Any work groups developed for this or that water system can participate?
Oh, thank you, Amy. We absolutely will be soliciting for water system beta testers in the future. I think if we are building a system that's intended to be the way for water systems to report to us in the future, necessarily water systems need to be involved in the discussions, and which is why we're here today to start the conversation, but also in the beta testing to make sure that what is built makes sense, is functional, and is usable for the main users, the water systems themselves. So we definitely will be soliciting for assistance in testing in the future and participation as we go through this process. Thank you, Amy.
Question from Kathy: will this system have a two-step authentication or other additional security applications?
Yes, so this system will have multi-factor authentication. Kieran, do you want to add in anything on this question?
Sure. Sorry, it took a while to get off mute, but yeah, it will have multi-factor authentication, and we'll probably be using one of your phones or email IDs, depending on how the solution will be cut to do that multi-factor authentication, but we'll keep it fairly simple for the end users, and definitely role-based, so you can see what you need to, which Karen already answered.
Thank you.
Thank you. Question from Nina. Are you still going to use EarthSoft products for this new portal?
So thank you, Nina. EarthSoft products are used for the California Laboratory Intake Portal. So that is how laboratories report water quality results to us, for anybody on the call that it's not aware of that. So the CLIP, the California Laboratory Intake Portal, that uses EarthSoft will continue to exist kind of on its own. The data that laboratories submit through CLIP will be accessible via WaterTAP, but we're not planning on making any changes at this time to CLIP or how laboratories, are currently reporting monitoring results.
Question from Paul. Will this new reporting platform replace the SAFER report?
That is a great question, Paul. Sort of. So the intention is that, the SAFER report is still going to be a required report, but it'll be behind the WaterTAP login. We don't want folks to have to go to multiple places to log in and find different places to report. So our intention with this design is that you will log into WaterTAP and you'll have all of your reporting. So you'll log into WaterTAP and you'll have your SAFER report without having to re-log in or go somewhere else. It'll still be the same form and function. So it'll look like it's gone, but it won't really. It'll just be behind the WaterTAP portal. Thank you, Paul.
And for Miriam, how can we sign up to be either testers or be on the advisory group?
Great question, Miriam. The best thing you can do is maybe if you could jump back to slide 16. Sorry, Matt, making you go backwards. If you subscribe for updates for WaterTAP, on the bottom of this slide, we are going to have details to follow as we get the advisory group a little bit more fleshed out and be sharing out information next year on that. So please stay tuned.
I'll note, if you don't want to type that URL in, you can use the WaterTAP website URL that's in the Q&A from Brian. At the very bottom of that webpage is the same subscription for updates on WaterTAP. So maybe easier to get to that way. Thank you, Miriam. Victoria, is this related to WB Key?
I can take that. Yeah, we are planning to use the WB key. Probably you have seen in the legacy applications being used, but currently in some of our other division applications that we are doing Okta login as well. So we'll have to see how the vendor comes on board and what's their preference. Might be WB key or Okta. Is still a very it's not a mature product yet, but we are trying to use that if possible. Hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Question from Kim. Will the advisory group be more high level or more of a working group with tasks and input and beta testing?
That is a great question, Kim. We are still fleshing out how the advisory group will look like and kind of what the different asks of them will be. So please stay tuned. I think you bring up a good point is that those are both needs, right? We need both a high level working group, but we also need support with beta testing. And so we'll need to make sure that we follow avenues to have both of those supported. Thank you, Kim.
Question from Fred. Amy has asked the most important question. If building this for the user implementer, then they have to be involved in the design from the earliest possible stages. So maybe more of a comment than a question. I think we've addressed that, but thank you, Fred. Any other thoughts on that, Karen?
Yeah, thank you, Fred. And please stay tuned. We definitely want to get our advisory group started in early next year so that we can start having those conversations. Appreciate the comment.
Question for Miriam. What is the plan for training water systems?
We have not developed the plan for training yet, but we will definitely need to have a concerted training plan that involves multiple avenues of whether that's written trainings, verbal trainings, office hours, materials. So that is something that we will ultimately be working with the vendor to help us make sure that we are doing training in a way that makes sense, but also we'll want to work with water systems to make sure that the training that we are planning to provide makes sense and is usable for the target audience. And
Question
Karen,
from
please feel free to jump in anywhere if you want to add.
No, I think you covered it. Thank you.
Question from Jimmy. Will the data structure, including field names, sampling codes, etc., in WaterTAP be comparable to the federal ones?
Great question, Jimmy. Joe might want to add more, but in short, yes. We will still need to be able to report to the federal government for oversight purposes. So we need to keep our data structure in a way that is conducive to that. But go ahead, Joe.
Oh, I was just going to agree. And since the system integrator is not on board yet, it's kind of also dependent on how their design implementation is. But of course, it will be compatible with the federal reporting.
Thanks, Joe.
Question from Christopher. You mentioned you are starting with LCR. Beyond that, do you have any more information about your envisioned roadmap?
That is a great question. We have not mapped out beyond LCR, so that is definitely going to be the first one. I think that's one of the things that we'll want to work with the advisory group with on what makes sense in phasing wise of which modules come after the LCR. We do have to start there. That's where our funding is largely coming from, but we do want to make sure that the rollout makes sense to water systems, and so we'll necessarily want to run the kind of any phasing plan through the advisory group that we'll be forming so that we can make sure that what we're doing makes sense.
Question from Mona Bina. Is this going to be focused on streamlining reports in one portal or also the overlap of similar questions across various reports?
Oh, I love that question. So first and foremost, we are looking on streamlining reports into one portal, but we also want to take the opportunity where possible and potentially with the support of others to minimize and decrease that overlap of similar questions. I think it drives all of us crazy seeing duplicative reporting or questions that are very, very similar, but there's just a little bit different. And if there are the opportunities that we can take as we're doing this to kind of decrease that duplicative reporting, we absolutely want to do that.
Question from Sachi. Will there be bulk upload of data by lab or only by water supplier?
Great question, Sachi. So the intention is that this is more for water systems to submit data, not labs. Labs will continue to support submit data through the California Laboratory Intake Portal. But there will be, there's planned to be, excuse me, the ability to have bulk upload of data. We've gotten a lot of feedback in the Safer Clearinghouse that while it was a little bit challenging in the beginning, it did make things easier to have a bulk upload. And so we definitely don't want to take that away. I think we heard loud and clear that was something that is desired. So we are working to continue that.
From Tony, do you have any anticipated time when the pins will be sent out to migrate data from the WUE portal?
I'm not sure what Tony is referring to, if any other panelists do, or maybe Tony, you can unmute yourself and expand on your question.
Yeah, Tony, if you're around and you'd like to unmute, raise your hand for me and I'll unmute you. It's easier to find you that way if you're willing to ask, or feel free to elaborate in the Q&A with a new question. We'll move on for now. Kim, Will the WaterTAP process include a process to align data across all DDW reporting requirements, such as an inventory of required data fields and clear data dictionary? Will this help eliminate the need to report the same field multiple times?
Great question, Kim. So like I mentioned earlier, it's definitely the companion to this effort. We definitely want to minimize duplicative reporting as much as we can. I think that's a place where others can really help us. But definitely as we start bringing reporting in, we don't want to bring in this same reporting in multiple times. So definitely looking to kind of streamline that process, decrease duplicative reporting, and as you mentioned, have a very clear data dictionary of what exactly we mean by each term. Thank you for that question.
From Steve, the difference between this and the new Safer site and WB Key?
So the difference this will be kind of the one place that you go for everything. So right now, folks have to go to so many different places to do their reporting, and this will become the single place that everybody goes. Additionally, it'll have more functionality than our existing systems. It'll allow milestone tracking. It'll allow workflow routing for transparency of what's going on with your submissions. So it is really a huge step forward in the division of drinking water's data management and having data that is both consistent and useful and transparent to users. Thank you, Steve.
From Russell, is it planned that utilities can automate data upload to the platform, API, or something else?
Gonna punt this one to Kieran.
We'll be definitely using APIs to do some of this data upload depending on the volume and the size of the data. So yes, it's being definitely planned for.
Thank you. From Hannah, how will WaterTAP integrate with reporting programs at DWR?
That is a great question, Hannah. That is still something that is to be determined. We definitely want to make sure that we are coordinating and integrating with our other state agency partners. And I think some of those we are further in the process with on integrating. But that is absolutely one of the things that we want to highlight as important is, we're modernizing our data, but it's, not just alone. We want our data to talk to other state agencies and their data to talk to ours. Because the last thing that we want is for a water system to report the exact same information to two different agencies. That doesn't really make sense. So we want to make sure that we are also coordinating and continuing to coordinate and find ways for efficiencies and between our state agencies. And Darren, you want to jump in and add there?
Yeah, I'll add one thing that people don't often take into consideration. The fact that we're the regulatory agency and the data we use is for regulation, that often means we need to control it and meet the COMER compliance component of it. So we have some restrictions at times of pulling data you've submitted to other agencies like DWR and then bringing it in if it's required for like our regulatory compliance. So it's an unfortunate situation sometimes, and we may need to negotiate with DWR, like maybe we hold the data and then they can use it since there's some legal constraints on it. But we will juggle those the best we can. We want to make sure that people are not doing stuff that they don't have to do. But I did want to highlight, I've tripped over this one before where someone sends something to DWR, but the reality is, since it's not in our control, it falls outside of the scope of us being able to use it in a regulatory program. So that's kind of a barrier that we need to work on.
Question from Kim. Are there any reports that won't be included in WaterTAP, like UWUO?
Apologies, I don't know what UWUO is. If any of the other panelists do. Maybe we could find Kim to add some additional context there.
Kim has raised their hand. I'll go ahead and allow them to unmute.
Hi, thank you so much. Yeah, it's the urban water use objective reporting. It's the new or the newer water efficiency requirements. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. So the reports to include in WaterTAP primarily will be focused on the ones that the Division of Drinking Water collects. So reports outside of that may not be included. I don't know, Darren, if you wanted to add anything there.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to take that one under consideration and work towards those. I mean, our intent's to be as useful as we can, but we may not, at least certainly in the first phases, be able to get all of those.
Thank you, Darren.
Thank you, Kim. I'm going to mute you now, but if you have any other comments or questions, feel free to Q&A or raise your hand again. And Kayla, I have multiple water systems. Will they all be in the same portal location, or would I have separate portals?
Great question. So the goal is that if you are a user, account holder for multiple water systems, that you would be able to log in once and have access to all of your water systems. And we want to really make this as easy as possible for folks to use, and recognizing, there are some people that, they work for one system and that's their whole world, but there's others that have multiple water systems and multiple different reporting requirements that they need to comply with. And so we need to plan for a system that accommodates both without making people log in and out. That just doesn't make sense. So we want you to log in once and be able to access all of your systems. Go ahead, Darren.
Yeah, and I just wanted to extend that, right? We're trying to join together water entities that possess multiple physical locations and homogenize those. They're not done very well in CIDWIS, right? CIDWIS is key to a physical location as its primary point, and then through very poor naming convention, we have not followed and brought those systems together. So it'll hold a layer above where it'll link systems that are related by one owner or other types of legal entities like that, which will be key to that as well.
From Bernie, please consider the impact on the many very small systems, less than 100 connections, which are basically volunteer organizations.
Noted. Thank you, Bernie. And we definitely will be looking for some small water systems to participate in our advisory group, because I think we all recognize we're trying to build a system that meets everybody's needs, but everybody has very different needs. And having all of those perspectives present in that conversation are going to be extremely important. So I really encourage you or others that you might know to be willing to kind of raise your hand and participate in the advisory group, so that we can make sure that we are addressing the very different needs that a small water system may have than a very large, complex water system may have. Thank you, Bernie.
From Jesse, will the system integrator be selected via the RFO process? If so, when do you anticipate the RFO being published?
Great question, Jesse. The system integrator will be selected through the RFP process, and we are hoping that it'll be published late this year.
Question from Steve, and secession reports?
Apologies, I don't know what that is either. So it probably will not be included.
Steve has his hand up. I'll go ahead and allow him to unmute. Okay, Steve, you can unmute yourself now when you're ready to speak.
Referring to the cessation and reduction reports that we do for DWR, just hoping that a lot of these platforms, because between our regular water district stuff and everything else, and MPDES and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, there's just so many platforms. I'm just really hoping that a lot of these kind of one-off, once a year stray reports get vacuumed into this in some sort of way.
Understood. We definitely want to include all the reports that we can. Unfortunately, if it's a DWR report, it's unlikely to be included in this effort.
Mm.
But thank you for the comment. I think we recognize and appreciate wanting to consolidate reporting as much as we can.
And from Nina, some of the provisions in the lead and copper rule improvements have a compliance date of November 1, 2027. Is this being considered since the plan is to have WaterTAP go live in late 2027?
Oh, that is a great question, Nina. Unfortunately, some of the requirements may come due for the lead and copper rule improvements before WaterTAP is live. And we'll have to work through that and make sure that we still get the appropriate reporting in. But stay tuned. We'll definitely have more concrete plans as we get closer to 2027.
Looks like a comment from Amy, just to say, great work to DDW. This is an excellent idea, and water systems are here to support you in this huge endeavor.
That is great. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you, Amy. From Melissa, do you envision this effort aligning with other existing data streamlining efforts coming from consortium, CADC, Cal WEP?
Thank you, Melissa. I think this could only benefit from coordinating and efforts with other agencies, whether that's the consortium or the collaborative or CalWeb. There's a lot of great things going on, and working together can only make this better for all of us. Our intent at the end of the day is to have a portal that is both useful for us as the regulators, but also more importantly, that is useful for public water systems. And that's going to take a village, right? That's going to take a lot of us to make sure happens in a thoughtful way, in a way that makes sense, and a way that's usable for everybody. So thank you, Melissa.
Maybe a follow-up comment from Tony. Sorry, I was getting my reporting portals mixed up. So much reporting.
There's a lot of reporting.
From Elena, are there plans for WaterTAP to include a feature to disseminate unsafe water notices?
Thank you, Elena. Yes, there are plans in the future for unsafe water notices to be integrated into WaterTAP. We really want WaterTAP to be that one-stop shop that you go to for everything, so that you have it up on your computer, your phone, or your tablet, or what have you, so that when something goes on, you have that ready. Like, oh, there's a problem. I need to issue an unsafe water notice. Here's my template already ready to go. So it is the long-term vision of kind of how WaterTAP will work for all of you. It won't be there day one. It'll take us some time to get there, obviously, but definitely that's our goal, and having a system that is that integrated and that useful for all of you. Thank you, Elena.
From Aristotle, will GeoTracker be integrated into WaterTAP?
Thank you, Aristotle. GeoTracker will not be integrated into WaterTAP. We may have the feature that you can see what's in GeoTracker, but GeoTracker is not a division of drinking water system, so it's not one that we can bring kind of under this umbrella at this time. But thank you for that question.
From Kristen, some reports have automatic calculations. Will these be carried over in the reporting?
Absolutely, Kristen. Our goal is to support as much automatic calculating as we possibly feasibly can. We definitely want to make things as easy as possible for the reporters, and where there are places that make sense for automatic calculations, we definitely are planning to continue that. Thank you for that question.
And from Kai, is there a plan to include an email alert utility to allow water system administrators to control who gets notifications when their data has been changed?
That is a great question to end on. Thank you, Kai. Yes, so the beauty of how we are planning WaterTAP to function is that the water systems administrative contact will be in control of their system in WaterTAP. So they'll really have control on who of their staff or contractors or whoever gets access and what kind of access they get. Thank you, Kai.
Another question came up here from Natalia. Will the WaterTAP be used to report results from LCRI monitoring?
Depends. So there are a lot of monitoring requirements in the LCRI. And so monitoring results that are conducted by a laboratory will continue to go in through CLIP, the California Laboratory Intake Portal, but they will all be visible within WaterTAP. So we are planning for a seamless integration where if a lab submits something, goes in through CLIP, but everybody can see those results in WaterTAP. And the non-laboratory data that needs to be submitted to comply with the LCRI would come in directly through WaterTAP. Thank you, Natalia.
All right, that's the last question in the Q&A right now. Feel free to add any last minute questions or raise your hand if you have any other comments or questions to share. We'll give that a minute or so before we close it out if we don't get anything else. Let's see, anything else on my agenda to discuss? While any last minute questions come in, I just want to thank you all for attending and participating in this webinar. As a reminder, we have recorded this webinar and we'll be uploading it to our webpage as soon as we can get it up there. If you have any further questions, please send them to the email address ddw-outreach@waterboards.ca.gov. Some couple of new questions coming in here. I'll just finish up here. Additionally, please subscribe to our mailing list to stay informed on any new WaterTAP announcements. From Daisy, will there be any more webinars?
Is that for me? Sorry. Yes, we will be planning more webinars in the future as we get further down the planning process. So please stay tuned. Please, as Matt mentioned, subscribe for updates. We definitely want to make sure that we keep all of you apprised of what's going on and really appreciate everybody's attendance and really thoughtful questions. So thank you all.
Great. And some thanks from some other folks, and Brian put in a easy to copy and paste DTW Outreach email address URL there. So, okay. Well, I think that about wraps it up. Thank you all again for attending and participating, and thanks to the panelists here for their work. Stay tuned for more information from us in the future. Thanks all.